Okay, we're looking at 5F, which is just solving a little rational equation. So we got x minus 1, this is on the review sheet, 5f.
It's right there.
Oh, okay. Now we can solve this in different ways, of course. My personal preference would be to multiply the whole shebang by 20, because I really don't want to mess around getting, I'd have to get a common denominator in order to do all the arithmetic, and I really don't want to. So I'm just going to multiply everything by 20, because 20 will cancel the 4, 20 will cancel the 5, and 20 will cancel the 2. So now, notice all my denominators are gone, and I have 5x minus 5 minus 4x equal to 10. Distribute here, 5x minus 5 minus 4x equals 10. So it looks like x equals 15 if I did all my arithmetic correctly. Okay? Jay?
We do 3b.
3b. Write the equation of the line tangent to, all right, what's this? What's that? That's the equation of a circle centered at the origin, right? Well, I mean numbers attached here, so it's at the origin, and it has a radius of √5. And on that circle is the point 1, 2, and we want the equation of the line tangent. So that's the line we want, right? What does it take to write the equation of a line? What information do we have to write the equation of a line? We gotta have a slope, and we gotta have a point. Now the point we have, they gave us that. In order to do this, you have to remember something from geometry. This would be a radius, right? Could we find the slope of that radius?
Yes.
Yeah, because we know the center's at the origin, we know that point's 1, 2. So the slope of the radius would be what? Watch it now.
2.
It's 2 minus 0 over 1 minus 0. So the slope of the radius is 2. Now we need from geometry to remember that there's a very special relationship that happens between a radius and a tangent. You remember what that is? The relationship between the radius and the tangent? They are perpendicular. Always. A radius and a tangent are perpendicular at the point of tangency. Now what does that do for me? Now remember, you already found the slope of this line was 2. You need the slope of this line, but they're perpendicular. So what do you know about the slope of this line? It's the opposite reciprocal. So the opposite reciprocal of 2 over 1 would be -1/2. So now you have what you need. So however you do it, I'll point slope this one. Nobody cares. Point slope, slope intercept, it doesn't make any difference. You're going to end up with the same answer either way. So I got -1/2x plus 5/2, or 2.5. My arithmetic is right. I use point slope. we could have used slope intercept. Same answer. Okay, good question. All right, who else has one that we need to look at? Nobody else has looked at the review sheet yet? All right, let's look at number 7. Just work our way backwards. Did we get through the whole backside?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just work our way backwards. Number 7, Mr. Knoll bought a bicycle 5 years ago that cost $237. The bike is now worth $92. The equation this models the value of the bike as a function of time and years. How many years ago was the value of the bike $150? Round to the nearest tenth of a year. Now, do not be confused. There's a lot of there's a lot of words in this problem. But basically, what does this look like? It uses some different letters, but basically, what is that? That's a line, right? Only instead of using X's and Y's, we are using times and values. So when it says Mr. Knoll bought a bicycle 5 years ago that cost $237, does that correspond to an ordered pair? What ordered pair would that correspond to? 5, 237. And the bike is now worth $92. What am I going to do with that? Well, now wait a minute. Yes, definitely comma 92. Let's think about this. I'm going to change your ordered pair for a minute. Tell me about that. Does that make sense to you? I know it said 5 years ago, but wasn't that the original value of the bike? 237 was the original value of the bike. So 237 was the value after no time passed. After 5 years passed, now the value is at $92. Do those ordered pairs make sense to you? It's a little bit tricky. You got to think about it. Time value, no time passed was 237. Original value 237. 5 years later, the value is now $92. Okay, I need to come up with an equation that looks like this, which you already said was a line. So what do I need to do? Find this, do exactly what I just did. Exactly. I need to find the slope. The slope is 237 minus 92 over 0 minus 5. What is that?
-29.
-29? All right, I'll take your word for it, thank you. Now, interestingly enough, see this point right here? That's the y-intercept. How do I know it's the y-intercept? Where is it if I graph it? On the y-axis. So my line is negative 29x plus 237. Could it be what?
Like -29 on the negative.
This would be, well, this is going to be a positive number.
Yeah, it's gonna be 145.
So it is, it's 145 over -5, and that makes negative 29. Okay, so then the question says, how many years ago was the value of the bike 150? Now remember, when you set up your ordered pairs, you set them up like this, right? So they've given you this 150, where does that go? Is that gonna go in as the X coordinate or the Y coordinate? The Y. This has a tricky component though. I'm not gonna put anything this tricky on your test. This is tricky. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and solve that. That's easy to solve. I don't think I meant this to be tricky, but the way I worded the problem was tricky. I got 3. Now remember, when I set up my ordered pairs, this means after 3 years, the value of the bike was 150. That's what that means. After 3 years. But how was the question asked?
3.
Not after, yeah, it didn't say after how many years. It said how many years ago. Well, where are we now? 5 years in? This was after 3 years, so in terms of the answer to the question, it was 2 years ago. But that's tricky. That's really tricky.
Wait, can you explain that again, the 2 years?
This is after 3 years. We're now after 5 years. So how many years ago was after 3 years?
All right.
That's just the way I phrased the question. It wasn't very good. Okay, that's 7. All right. Anything we need to do in 6? 6A, you will FOIL. 6B, we will divide by 4 and check to see what the remainder is.
What does the,
C is just exponents.
so what does the remainder tell you?
The remainder tells you how many little i's are left over.
Oh,
So you can't have more than 3 left over. If you only have 1 left over, then it's just I. If you have 2 left over, it's I squared, which is -1. If you have 3 left over, it's I times I squared, which is -I. And if there's none left over, then that means you just have 1.
So if we divided 175 by 4, and then we did it like, we got like 43.75, because that's what it is.
You need the remainder. 6B, oh, we've just been talking about, we just did it. Take 175 and divide it by 4. And I get a remainder of 3. That means I have I left over. This is I squared, which is -1, so my answer is -I. Remember, I'm only interested in the remainder when I do the division. What are you shaking your head for? I times I times I times I is 1. Every 4 i's makes a 1. This is a multiplication problem. 1's don't matter. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. Never going to impact my answer. The only thing that matters is what does not group into 4. These extra 3 don't make a group of 4. So I have to figure out what those 3 i's make. These 2 make I squared, which is -1 times I. I'm only interested in the ones I can't group into 4s. Because every 4 makes just a 1, which doesn't matter to me. Robbie?
So the question says I raised to 175. How do you know that you divided by 4?
Okay, because you always divide it by 4. Because I to the 175th is 175 i's. These 2 make a -1, these 2 make a -1, so these 4 make a +1. These 4 make a +1. These 4 make a +1. And all those are getting times by each other. It doesn't matter. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1. Irrelevant. What matters is, after I've gone through and circled all the groups of 4, what's left over on the end? That's what matters. Okay. All right, anybody see anything else? I'm just gonna keep going. All right, looking at the inequalities, there are 3 of them. 2 of them are absolute value. 5A and 5B are both absolute value. B is definitely the harder of the 2, so let's do B. Okay, so what are we gonna do first? You have to divide everything by 2. It's sort of like completing the square. You can't have a coefficient out in front. When you complete the square, you have to divide also. So we have x plus 1/2 less than 7/2. All right, so here's my number line. What am I gonna put right in the middle of it? Negative 1/2. And then I'm going to count out and back 7/2. So I'm going to count 7/2 this way, which would put me at 6/2 or 3. I'll count 7/2 back this way, which will put me at negative 8/2 or negative 4. And you're either going to shade outside or inside. This is a less than problem, so we'll shade inside. And there is the answer to our question. All the numbers between negative 4 and 3. Now, how do we do problem C? 5C. We factor it first. And then what? Put them on a number line in order. They'll be colored in, right? And then what? Pick a number. 0. Love to use 0. It's so easy. Just pay attention to where 0 would be. 0's here this time. So if I put in 0, I'm going to have a negative 3 times a negative 1. Right? If I put in 0. Does that give me the kind of answer that I wanted? No, because this means negative. And that gives me a positive. So that is not colored, which means that is, and that's not. So my answer is 1, 3. Now, to be absolutely sure, you can check a number in every space, right? It's not necessary, but if you want to, you can try 2, try 5, and make sure. How do you do D? 5D. You could use the quadratic formula. You could also complete the square if you wanted to. I don't think that factors, so that's not an option. On the test, nobody's going to tell you how you have to do it. You have to be able to solve that equation. How about E? What do we do with E? We group them, exactly. We're going to group them. So the first 2, we can take out an x squared. The last 2, we can take out a negative 4. Let's take the negative out. And if grouping is going to work, these parentheses have to match. They do, so I'll write it down. Notice when I write it down, I don't square it or anything, I just write it down. And then what's left here? X squared minus 4, which factors into plus 2 minus 2. Now, this is not an inequality. You don't need a number line. You just say the answers are 1, 2, and -2. This is an equation. Only with inequalities do we have to shade and all that. Just that, those are the answers. Write the equation of the circle with a diameter. I'm looking now at 4B. So this reviews lots of different things. If we want to find the circle with that diameter, we're going to do what? We're going to find the center. And we will find, because you can't write the equation of a circle without the center. You gotta have the center. And to find the center, we'll do midpoint. And midpoint is average. So 2 and 4 makes 6. Divided by 2 makes 3. -2 and 6 makes 4. Divided by 2 is 2. So my center is at 3, 2. Midpoint is average. Add the x's divided by 2, add the y's divided by 2. Now that tells me that my circle looks like this. Remember that? X minus 3 squared, y minus 2 squared. Now what else do I need? I need the center. Okay, we did that part. What else do I need?
Radius.
The radius. This is the radius, right? So how am I going to find the radius? I'm going to use my distance formula. So the radius is the square root of 4 minus 3 squared plus 6 minus 2 squared, which is 1 plus 16, root 17. Now what do I put into my equation? That is the radius, that's root 17. But what goes into my equation? 17, because this number is always r squared. We kind of already did one, something very similar to 3C. Anytime the directions say write the equation of the line, you know you need a slope and you need a point. So in 3C, the point is 1, 3, but I don't have my slope. All I know is that I have this line out there, and I want to be perpendicular to it. So what am I going to have to do? Find the slope of this line. And how do I do that?
So y.
Get y by itself. So I get y by itself, and that looks like it has a slope of 1/2. Do not use 1/2 in this problem. This is 3C, and it says perpendicular.
Negative.
So I use the opposite reciprocal of this, which would be -2. If it said parallel, which it could, yeah, I would use 1/2. And then we're back to where we were a little while ago. We want the equation of that line. So you either y equals mx plus b or point slope, right? Whichever you like best. Point slope, my personal favorite. But you could also do y equals mx plus b. And come up with exactly the same answer. number 2? What's our strategy on number 2? Multiply top and bottom by the conjugate of the denominator. And the conjugate of the denominator would be what?
3 plus
3 plus 2i. And then it becomes just a big FOILing exercise on the top and the bottom. So we'd have 15 plus 10i plus 3i plus 2i squared. I'm just FOILing first, outside, inside, last. And what should always happen on the bottom if you're doing this right? You should lose your i's on the bottom. Of course, we have to remember that I squared is what?
negative 1.
-1. So a plus 2i squared would be a -2. And a minus 4i squared would be a +4. Oh my, looky there. Guess what we can do?
Cancel out.
We got them in all 3 spots, so the answer is just going to be 1 plus I think. Remember, if it had come out this way, even though these are both 13s, you cannot cancel. You have to be able to cancel in all 3 spots. This would be done. You wouldn't be able to do anything with that. What properties are you responsible for? Just 5. What are they? Commutative. Now, that I say there's just 5. Remember, commutative could be addition or multiplication. Associative could be addition or multiplication. The identity is addition or multiplication. The inverse, addition or multiplication, and then the distributive law, right? Distributive property. Those are the 5 you need to know. Even though there are a couple of different ones on here. The ones you need to know are those 5. Okay? So, having done now pretty much the whole sheet, I know we didn't do every single problem, but what other questions do we have? This is your time. We got 10 more minutes. Yes, ma'am. What is it?
It's 46 on P4. That's like how you start.
P4 46. We're going to invest $18,000. X of it in the savings that pays 0.05. The rest into amount that pays 0.08. What are the possible values of X? So X is the amount at 5% interest. What would be the amount at 8% interest? Remember, I only have, I should say only, that's a lot, but I have $18,000 to invest altogether. So if I put X of it in this pile, how much would be left over here in this pile? Well, don't say why. Then if I put 2 variables into my problem, that's perfectly legit, but then I need 2 equations. Okay? You can't write 1 equation with 2 variables. You have to have 2 equations if that's what you're going to do. I don't want to do that. I want 1 equation. So think of it. I put X here. I have 18,000 altogether. I cut it in 2 chunks. This chunk's X. How much is left over here? Well, I didn't necessarily cut it into 2 equal pieces. That would be X and X. But it didn't say they had to have the same amount in each one. What if you put $10,000 in this? How much would be left over here? How did you do that? You took 18,000 minus 10,000, right? So what if I put X here? 18,000 minus X. Now, first question says, what are the possible values of X? So here's my 18,000. Could I put all of it in 5%? Could I put none of it in 5%? So my values of X are between 0 and 18,000. Some number between 0 and 18,000 is how much money I put over here in this account. Total interest received. So we'll take 5% times X and 8% times 18,000 minus X. So I don't want to take our class time to multiply that out and collect like terms, but that would be the next step. That would be it. That would be it. Then it says graph and trace. Okay, you don't have to graph and trace. You can if you want, but it's easier, I think, in this case. We earn $1,020 in total interest. I think it's easier just to put 1,020 here and solve that equation. On your test, think about the review sheet. What did we have to graph on our test? What did we graph? No, not on our calculator. I mean, on our calculator. What did we graph on the review sheet? Nothing today. What did we graph yesterday? To find the zeros of those hard equations that we couldn't solve by hand. This is not one of those. It would take longer on the calculator than it would just do by hand. So just solve that equation for C. And then it says, use your grapher to generate a table of values to find out how much Mary Ellen should invest at 5% to earn $11.85 in total interest for 1 year. Again, you don't even need to do that. If you want to earn $11.85, just solve this equation. That is so much faster than messing around with the graph. On your test, you need to be able to find the zeros. On your test, you need to be able to put in data and generate a regression line, either quadratic or linear. That's with the stat edit and all that stuff. Those are the only two things we're using our calculators for right now. All right, anybody else have a question about one of these problems? Anything?
When it's not in a, the point isn't in a quadrant, and it's asking, would you just say on the x-axis?
Positive x-axis. So if the point in question is like here,
Yeah.
you would say it's on the negative x-axis.
Why did we have to put it into the distance formula?
We had to find the radius. When you write the equation of a circle, you need to know the center and you need to know the radius.
Okay.
And I didn't know how long that was, so I had to find it, find the length, so I knew what my radius was. Okay.
Can we do 17 on P7?
P7,
I don't think it's hard,
17.
it's just I feel like I'm doing
P7, 17. Oh, x squared minus 4x minus 1. Solve graphically. Now,
zero.
yeah, because you're going to graph it. So x squared minus 4x. This is 17. X squared minus 4x minus 1. Okay, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about you have to be able to do on your calculator. This does not factor, it says solve graphically. So I'm going to graph this on my calculator. Now, I don't have time right now to put it in because I got 2 minutes, but it's going to be a parabola. I know that, right? Because it's an x squared, and I know it's a parabola opening up. So I'm just going to take a wild guess. I'm going to say it looks like this. I really don't know. So pretend that's what it is. Now, these 2 points have to be found. So I know how to find those points. Then I have to look at this. So whatever these 2 points are, you know how to second calc and find those. What do you do with that? You want it not just to be equal, you don't want it to be equal to 0. This is where it equals 0. You want it to be less than 0. So this is the part of the graph that would be your answer. So if this is -3 and this is 1 and it's not, I'm totally making that up. My answer would be all the numbers between -3 and 1.
I keep getting like 1.
Yeah, they will be. They will be. They're decimals. They're
Okay,
decimals.
percentage just looks so wrong.
Because it doesn't factor. So yeah, we do decimals. I'm gonna erase that. All right, remember on Friday, if you want to come in a little early, you can to get started, just to make sure you're not rushed. Yeah. Especially since this is the first one. You jammed my stapler. Way to go. Way to go, Caitlin. You jammed my stapler.
Come on, Caitlin.
Man, you did a number on it.
And then it's just.
Look, it's still jammed. Well, I don't know. I have to figure it out because you have done a number. Did you turn the video off?